to kill innocent life, who had relations with Zarqawi. Imagine what the world would be like with him in power. The idea is to try to help change the Middle East. Now, look, part of the reason we went into Iraq was the main reason we went into Iraq at the time was we thought he had weapons of mass destruction. It turns out he didn't, but he had the capacity to make weapons of mass destruction. But I also talked about the human suffering in Iraq, and I also talked the need to advance a freedom agenda. And so my answer to your question is that imagine a world in which Saddam Hussein was there, stirring up even more trouble in a part of the world that had so much resentment and so much hatred that people came and killed 3,000 of our citizens. You know, I've heard this theory about, everything was just fine until we arrived, and kind of stir up the hornet's nest theory. It just doesn't hold water as far as I'm concerned. The terrorists attacked us and killed 3,000 of our citizens before we started the freedom agenda in the Middle East. They were. What did Iraq have to do with what?
The attack on the World Trade Center.
Nothing, except for it's part of. And nobody's ever suggested in this administration that Saddam Hussein ordered the attack. Iraq was a. The lesson of September 11th is take threats before they fully materialize. Again, nobody's ever suggested that the attacks of September the 11th were ordered by Iraq. I have suggested, however, that resentment and the lack of hope create the breeding grounds for terrorists who are willing to use suiciders to kill to achieve an objective. I have made that case. And one way to defeat that, defeat resentment, is with hope. And the best way to do hope is through a form of government.
And our strategy of encouraging Iraqis to take the lead in this fight. And sending more Americans would suggest that we intend to stay forever.
The president spoke then of his deference to military commanders.
As we determine the right force level, our troops can know that I will continue to be guided by the advice that matters, the sober judgment of our military leaders.
And the president spoke of that deference again this fall.
And that's the way I will continue to conduct the war. I'll listen to generals. They know what they're doing, and I'm going to tell you, I've got great confidence in General John Abizaid and General George Casey.
General Abizaid then testified to Congress that an increase in troops would be a mistake.
No, I do not believe that more American troops right now is the solution to the problem.
Abizaid has since been replaced. General George Casey, who also opposed the troop increase, was replaced as well. The president's decision to increase the number of combat troops goes against not just his former military commanders, but also bucks the Prime Minister of Iraq. Just 6 weeks ago, in a meeting with President Bush, U.S. officials acknowledged Nouri al-Maliki's suggestion for Baghdad was to lower the U.S. profile, not raise it. But the Bush escalation also totally disregards the message from the bipartisan Iraq study group. 2 months ago, the panel urged a gradual combat troop decrease. The commission also said it was crucial that any new plan reflect a national consensus. But tonight, President Bush will be forging ahead almost all alone. Only a minority in Congress support his escalation, and some of those lawmakers say the troop increase will not be big enough to make any difference. So leading into his speech, the president is getting hit from both sides. Meanwhile, the violence in Iraq grinds on with no end in sight. I'm David Schuster for Hardball in Washington.
I don't oppose war in all circumstances, and when I look out over this crowd today, I know there is no shortage of patriots or patriotism. What I do oppose is a dumb war.
Us rushing headlong into a war unilaterally was a mistake and may still be a mistake. If it has happened, then at that point what the debate's really going to be about is what's our long-term commitment there? How much is it going to cost? What does it mean for us to rebuild Iraq? How do we stabilize and make sure that this country doesn't splinter into factions between the Shias and the Kurds and the Sunnis?
I'm a hawk when it comes to defeating terrorism. I was strongly supportive of Afghanistan. I would have picked up arms myself to prevent 9/11 again. I don't think the president has made the case on Iraq because I don't see weapons of mass destruction. You said this before. I said this in October of 2002, 6 months before the war was launched.
If you had been a member of the Senate, you would have voted against the resolution.
Yes. And I also, and this raises a broader issue of the Democratic Party. I think it's important for us to stand our ground and take our licks, rather than what sometimes is our habit, which is to cave and then whine about it afterwards, which makes us not only look weak but also petty.
It sure does.
Most of you know that I opposed this war from the start. I thought it was a tragic mistake. Today we grieve for the families who have lost loved ones, the hearts that have been broken, and the young lives that could have been. America, it is time to start bringing our troops home. It's time to admit that no amount of American lives can resolve the political disagreement that lies at the heart of someone else's civil war. That's why I have a plan that will bring our combat troops home by March of 2008. Let the Iraqis know. Letting the Iraqis know that we will not be there forever is our last best hope to pressure the Sunni and Shia to come to the table and find peace. And there's one other thing that it's not too late to get right about this war, and that is the homecoming, the men and women, our veterans, who have sacrificed the most. Let us honor their courage by providing the care they need and rebuilding the military they love. Let us be the generation that begins that work. We cannot rid Iraq of every single individual who opposes America or sympathizes with our adversaries. We cannot police Iraq's streets indefinitely until they are completely safe. Nor can we stay until Iraq's union is perfect.